Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. I like that cover. This is from Tor Nightfire, and I'm going to attempt to read the inside cover copy. Don't know if the lighting will allow it. So let's see what this says. Something is wrong in Neverton, Montana, and that something isn't me. Welcome to a God-fearing community with a heart of gold. Nestled high up in the mountains is Camp Damascus, the self-proclaimed most effective gay conversion camp in the country. Here, a life free from sin awaits, but the secret behind that success is anything but holy. From Chuck Tingle, beloved internet icon, comes a searing and earnest horror debut about the demons the queer community faces in this country, the price of keeping secrets, and finding the courage to burn it all down. So there's your nutshell. For the too long didn't watch folks, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. So Chuck Tingle, as it says, internet icon, and here's Chuck Tingle's author photo. Now, for those who don't know, I'm going to keep reading flaps. Chuck Tingle is a mysterious force of energy behind sunglasses and a pink mask. He is also an anonymous author of romance, horror, and fantasy. Tingle was born in Home of Truth, Utah, and now splits his time between Billings, Montana, and Los Angeles, California. Tingle writes to prove love is real, because love is the most important tool we have when resisting the endless cosmic void. Not everything say about Tingle is true, but the important parts are. So, Chuck Tingle came to my attention when I started hearing about these crazy books that he was self-publishing on Amazon, and you know what? I am going to... I don't want to screw up any of the titles, so I'm actually going to look this up on Amazon. So let's see. Some Chuck Tingle titles for those who don't know. How about Buttageddon, The Final Days of Pounding Ass? Or Handsome Sentient Food Pounds My Butt and Turns Me Gay. 8 Tales of Hot Food. Let's see. There's some... Pounded by Politics Again. 9 more tales of civic butthole diplomacy. My Food is Bi and So Am I. 8 erotic tales of bisexual sentient food. I think you're getting the idea. Bisexually pounded by the physical manifestation of the first and second time I hit my snooze button. I actually started reading a sample of that, and it's an interesting, well-written story. I didn't go too deep into it, but those were the titles, the types of titles I was hearing about this Chuck Tingle person. And then I've heard him on some podcasts. He was on the Ghoulish podcast once or twice, maybe more. And I think I listened to him on a different podcast as well, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure I've heard him at least twice, though. At least twice. So, anyway. As fun and as funny as some of those other books sound, I wasn't rushing out to buy and read Chuck Tingle until he signed a contract to write some books for Tor Nightfire. Regular viewers know that I purchase almost every Tor Nightfire book. I'm not going to go into the exceptions. And so, Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle came out from Tor Nightfire, and I picked it up. And then Bury Your Gaze came out by Chuck Tingle from Tor Nightfire. I picked that up. And on August 12th, which is this coming Tuesday as of this recording, but it will be probably a couple of Tuesdays back by the time this goes up on YouTube. But his new book, From Tor Nightfire, Lucky Day, I believe it's called, is coming out. And so I decided his new book's coming out. Maybe it's time for me to read his first book from Tor Nightfire, which is why I read Camp Damascus. Didn't realize I was going to love it so much. But here's what's going on. Our story is being narrated by a young woman. She's 20 years old, and I don't recall her first name at the moment. Her last name is Darling. I'm looking very quickly to see where somebody is going to say her name. I don't recall. This is terrible, terrible. I'm a horrible, horrible person, horrible book reviewer. And let's see. I'm hoping this guy will say her name. And Rose. There it is. I knew it was something short and sweet. Rose Darling. Anyway, she's our narrator. She's 20 years old. She comes from a very religious community, a very religious family. We learn right off the bat. She's at this sort of watering hole with her friends, and we learn right off the bat. She's never read Peter Pan. She's never read Sherlock Holmes. Those are forbidden because there's magic and there's other things that are bad, bad, bad. And they are a Christian community, a Christian family, but it's not your typical Christianity. They actually have a prophet whose name I do not recall, but it's a guy who back at the beginning of the industrial age lost a hand at work and was in a coma and had visions of God. And so they have these 4 tenets that this prophet has given them. They're living by this prophet's word and his vision of Christianity. And so Rose is telling this story. Oh, and she's a senior in high school, but she's 20. And that's because, again, this religion, this church, twice during their high school years, they take a year off from regular school. They take 1 year off to study the first 2 tenets, and then they go back to school for a year or 2, I think, and then they take another year off to focus on the second 2 tenets, and so then by the time they're a senior, they're 19 or 20 or possibly 21, birthdays and all that stuff. So, but they're at this watering hole, stuff's going on. We get the feeling that maybe Rose is attracted to another woman, and she sees, or another girl, whatever, however you want to put it. She sees a strange figure in the woods, a very spooky figure. Some stuff goes on. She goes home. She's hanging out with her parents. She pukes up some flies, and things go crazy from there. I don't want to get too deep into it. We learn about Camp Damascus. I'm not giving anything away because it's in the flap that it's a gay conversion camp. Anti-gay conversion camp? I mean, they're not converting people into gays. So, yeah, spooky stuff starts happening pretty quickly, and it goes off the rails, and I think Rose is a great character, and Chuck Tingle's writing, very smooth, very clear. While he's able to build tension and mystery, there's no confusion in the way he's writing, if that makes sense. And I I like where the story goes. I can't talk too much about it. I don't want to give anything at all away because it's 5 out of 5 stars. So obviously I'm going to highly recommend this story, and I don't want to spoil anything. But we're going to follow Rose as she tries to figure out why she saw this mysterious figure in the woods, why she puked up flies, why things are suddenly getting very weird, and we're along for the ride, and I think that Rose is an absolutely adorable character simply because she's so religious. She doesn't swear, and so she'll say frick, and I just some reason I find that funny. I want to talk about something and why it becomes even more adorable, but it would give things away, I think, so I can't really talk about it. I was going to compare it to something that happens in a movie that I enjoy very much. We can talk about it. If anybody wants any types of spoilers, it's not a major one, it's a minor spoiler, but we can talk about that in the comments. But anyway, I just like that she has her cute little words that aren't swears, but they are swears. Come on, frick. God knows what you're saying. Um, so, yes. And love is a very strong theme in the book. Chuck Tingle, right on his pillowcase that he wears, says love is real. And it's something that he talks about on social media and in podcasts. And I'm hoping someday all of the truth of Chuck Tingle will be revealed. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. We have his books, but it would be nice to know who the real Chuck Tingle is. But I didn't realize at first that this was, obviously I knew that was a mouth, but I didn't realize these were the mayflies coming out of the mouth, which is something that happens. I mentioned she pukes up flies. But, yes. Camp Damascus, 5 out of 5 stars. Chuck Tingle, absolutely fantastic. Well written, great characters, great story, great mystery, great tension. It goes in very unexpected directions. Turns certain things that people might think, turns them on their heads. I can't recommend this enough, and I so tempted to immediately jump into Bury Your Gaze and then immediately jump into Lucky Day when that comes out, but I like to hold on and savor. I don't want to run out of Chuck Tingle to read. Of course, he's got dozens and dozens and dozens of those crazy titles that I could pick up if I were desperate for some Chuck Tingle. But can't recommend it highly enough. Camp Damascus, Chuck Tingle, Tor Nightfire. Absolutely check it out. Fantastic book. So, question for the video. Have you heard of Chuck Tingle? What have you heard about Chuck Tingle? Have you read any Chuck Tingle? Let's talk Chuck Tingle. I've already talked about my history with the person who is Chuck Tingle. I followed him on Twitter back in the day, and I currently follow him on Facebook. And as I said, I've heard him on podcasts. He's very entertaining, and even just reading part of one of those weird titled books. It was the parts that I read were well written. It was interesting, and I'm absolutely. If he puts out any other mainstream books, even if they're not Tor Nightfire, I would absolutely pick them up. And as I said, if I get desperate, maybe I'll pick up one or two of the other ones. Maybe some of the short story collections. There were some that actually looked, they all sound crazy interesting, but there were some that looked even more interesting than others. And again, as I said, I would love to eventually learn the truth of Chuck Tingle, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's up to Chuck. But what do you think? What do you know? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here. on the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, I'll have links for my Instagram and Blue Sky in the description below. That's all I've got. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.